Welcome to the Balance of Cinema podcast, a show dedicated to discussing movies from the cinematic failures to lesser-known classics hiding on Tubi to the starting bombs of now legendary actors. I am Steven, and this is my co-host for today, Todd. Hello, Todd.
Hello.
How have you been?
All right. I've been listening to a lot of Kate Bush singing Heathcliff.
I wonder why that is. For those that are maybe just joining in on this episode, Todd has been in a couple of episodes of the show. He was in our very first episode when we covered Craven the Hunter and Mystery Men. He was in a Madam Web episode, which is technically the pilots, and was recorded over a year ago. And then a super episode of Superman 4 that may or may not be out by the time that this is out. It's an old episode. I'm sorry. I'm bad at this. But of course, Todd, I brought you here so we can talk about your favorite book, Wuthering Heights. I don't know where this stands on your favorite books.
Yeah, it's a big thing right now. I read it this year, or I guess the end of last year, 2025, and it was tough going. It wasn't. I had no idea it was filled with such angry, vicious characters.
Yeah, I had a similar. It's one of those things that you always hear about, but like you never like check out. So it's like you have like these ideas of what the media is, and then you finally watch it and you're like, oh, what the heck? So I don't know about you, but the two perceptions I always had of it was that this was a horror story, because I still don't realize that gothic horror doesn't mean, oh boo, ghost, I'm scared. And I thought it was a romance story.
Yeah.
Is it either of those things?
I mean, it's got elements, but I guess you call it gothic. It certainly is gothic literature.
Yes.
But and you've just got characters that are really, really hyperbolic. I mean, they're very strong characters, but that doesn't necessarily make any of them nice people. In fact, I don't really think any of the characters in the story are nice people, and so it has that thing where you're starting to wonder who to root for, and that your main characters are kind of crazy, kind of just they're villains in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really kind of surprising. And now I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, both for people who like Wuthering Heights, the book, or don't like Wuthering Heights, the book. And the ones that like it tend to say, well, you people that don't like it, you just don't understand. It's not a romance. It's these aren't nice people, but it's just very powerful. They're obsessed with each other. And so I went into it not really knowing what to expect, just that I figured it would be interesting because it's considered a classic. And it is interesting just because the way it's set up is that as soon as you start to feel sorry for one character, then they'll do something that's so reprehensible that it's hard to be sympathetic to them anymore. And then you start feeling sorry for the other person, and then they do something incredibly reprehensible, and then it's hard to feel sorry for them. And so I like to think of the book and all these adaptations. I'm now up to my 6th adaptation that I've watched. And I like to call the story a pit of vipers because they're all mean to each other. It's just really, really cutthroat, sometimes literally. And so I started analyzing what some adaptations include and what they don't and what they changed. So watching this one from 1992 that we're talking about, it was the 5th adaptation I'd seen. And and I've watched one more since then with Timothy Dalton
Mm.
from 1970, and it also was interesting. They all have a lot of interesting takes, but how effective they are is that's really up to the viewer, I guess.
Yeah, I think what's one thing that definitely seems to be interesting with this story is that there can be multiple ways to look at this. Apparently, some of the adaptations are just straight romances.
Well, what they tend to do is, and this was true in the 1939 Laurence Olivier Merle Oberon Best Picture nominated movie that didn't have a chance in hell in winning Best Picture because it was up against 9 other amazing Best Pictures because 1939 was the best year of the golden age of Hollywood. But because it was up against Gone with the Wind, which of course won, but that was also the year of Wizard of Oz, which was not nominated as Best Picture.
What?
But yeah, it's just so many great movies in 1939. Uh, but yeah, what Laurence Olivier's version did, as well as a teleplay that I saw, which is my current favorite, from 1958, DuPont, the company DuPont Chemicals, paid for a live teleplay with Richard Burton and Rosemary Harris, who was Aunt May for Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
They are in the sexiest, awesomest version from 1958 and live television. And they do more than I would have expected from live TV in 1958. But it's awesome. They're so theatrical and so, but both of those versions only do like the first half of the book. Now, this one we're talking about with 92, Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Binoche. This one does the whole story, the whole book, and it takes a few changes, but it does. Wait a minute, let me think. Actually, it doesn't do the whole book. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah. They're all. I'm trying to keep them all separate here. But yes, because the romance part of it is kind of just like in like the second fourth of the middle, not even the middle third. It's just a small sliver at the end of the first half of it where Kathy and Heathcliff have kind of their passionate troubles. And but yeah, you start off with a ghost story and then you build up with this obsessive romance, and then the second half of the book that these movies do later are the full the second generation, where you're watching Heathcliff kind of mess up the second generation, which you're right, it is in this one. Sorry, it's all kind of, so I thought I could keep them straight. But this one does have their kids. Because Juliette Binoche plays Kathy as well as her daughter Kathy.
Yeah,
And
which confused me.
so we do get to follow that one. And
But
and
by
the,
the way, there's a lot of I guess technically not incest in this
right.
story.
Because back then, cousins marrying cousins was perfectly acceptable and
Yeah.
encouraged. And so yeah, you have I guess as long as the immediate siblings weren't marrying each other, it was all fair game. And the best thing about Heathcliff is that he is not related to anybody else.
Mhm.
And so we've got him coming in from Liverpool. But I guess to start things off, we should discuss the synopsis. Like, what is Wuthering Heights about?
First, I wanted to kind of explain why I chose this one specifically.
Okay.
It is kind of a silly reason, but also kind of really not. I don't think so. Like, I'll defend the reason why I did it. I had a I've been really getting into Ralph Fiennes, who plays Heathcliff in this movie, a
Oh yeah.
lot past, like, I would say 2 or so years. Like, I've always really liked him, but, like, he pops up in a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, Generally in supporting roles. And since I watched The Menu,
Hmm.
I've really just kind of discovered, and then honestly, it should have been Red Dragon that kind of could mean this, but like the menu especially just shows like the range of performances that he has of where he could do comedy, he could be scary, he can be very likable. And then I watched the movie 28 Years Later.
Oh.
I don't know, have you seen the 28 Years Later movies?
No. I saw the original 28 Days Later, but I haven't seen the new sequels. Yeah.
Okay.
Any of the
I love specifically the 28 Years Later movies. The two have come out. The first one is like almost like kind of like this like medieval style epic about like, a child like kind of finding disappointing he's disappointed in his father figure in a society, and so he kind of just rises up to become a hero. Unfortunately, the world that he's in is surrounded by zombies.
Hmm.
But he plays or Ray Fiennes plays a very enigmatic character named Dr. Kelson, who like you don't really know the type of person he is, but when you finally meet him, you almost like learn exactly what like type of person he is, and he's like like the best part of the movie. Um, he kind of like becomes like a major role like towards like the end of the second act. And then 28 years later, the Bone Temple, which is the second part, gives him a much larger focus, and he is fantastic in both movies. And both movies are already like great, but just him, he like, well, I don't want to say he steals every scene he's in because there's only like five actors. There's only like five major characters, but his presence in those movies is amazing, and like they they make the movies really special. And so it really inspired me to want to check out more of his filmography and not just like the like the Harry Potters and stuff like that. Like I want to
Right.
like experience his like lesser known work that he's
Oh, that's right.
probably more passionate about. Um and so coincidentally at some point I just heard someone talk about like, oh yeah, he's because the new movie's coming out for Wuthering Heights.
Right.
And so someone brought up how like, oh yeah, they're just like the Ray Fiennes version. I was like, oh, Ray Fiennes was in that. And so not only did I find out that like, yeah, he has his own, he plays Heathcliff in a Wuthering Heights adaptation. It's technically his first movie.
Hmm.
Like, of course, like he was a theater guy. He was a huge theater guy. Even to this day, he's still like focused a lot like on theater. Even like directing like his own plays too. And I'm kind of lying. I don't think it's. He did two movies around the same time. One of them was, I'm gonna get it up right now.
A Dangerous Man, Lawrence After Arabia.
Yeah, he was in he was in the sequel to Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
It's always funny when you find out movies like that. It's like, yeah, there was a sequel.
So yeah, he obviously must have been coming from big theater in order to hit the ground running with these lead roles right out the bat.
I believe the A Dangerous Man that was made directly for TV.
Yeah.
But this one was made for theatrical. Sadly, in America, it didn't get a theatrical release because it didn't even do well in other countries. So I believe it was aired directly to TV as well. But this is kind of like a very important movie in his career, not just because it's his first movie, major motion pic, because this was made by Paramount, but Steven Spielberg saw this movie.
Mm.
And there was something about his performance in this movie that made Steven Spielberg go, "That's my lead Nazi."
Yeah.
And so this movie and performance is why Ray Fiennes was able to get the role in Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Which of course just led to this amazing career that Ray Fiennes had.
Yeah, it's pretty stellar. I've seen 19 of his movies on Letterboxd.
That's not
And
working.
good stuff.
Even like looking up at like his follow, like he had like a great like decade after this movie.
Yeah.
He was in Quiz Show, Strange Days, and of course he was in the Avengers.
Yeah, my favorite Avengers.
everyone knows the Avengers movie from the 90s, and I know what you're asking. Oh, did he play Iron Man? And it's like, no, he played John Steed.
Of course. That was the first movie I saw when I came to Hollywood at the Man's Chinese Theater. It was awesome.
A big theater to yourself, I'm guessing.
It was opening night. They
Oh,
hadn't screened with any critics, so no one knew how bad it was going to suck. So there was a good sized crowd there. And I'll never forget, I had friends sitting on my right, but on my left was a stranger sitting next to me, and he was dead silent the whole movie. Like he was pissed. This is not my John Steed.
I like how it wasn't. He was pissed because he was watching the Avengers. He was pissed because he was a fan of the Avengers.
Yeah. And I knew it got a lot of backlash that they were recasting these glorious roles, and it had a lot of fans, but it was also incredibly silly, which I had not watched any of the show before I saw that movie, but I've gone back since then. So I kind of gave it a lot of understanding, because I feel like those Technicolor teddy bears were worth the price of admission. And then also I love the score. It is my favorite soundtrack album of all time, and I'm not ashamed to say that. It has Louise Post from Veruca Salt doing a few songs with Sinead O'Connor, and her other there was a band that I think only existed on the soundtrack called Ashtar Command. And then it had a bunch of other songs that I really, really like, including my favorite, which was by a guy who went by the name Baby Bird, and he did this song called My Twin, and it's just my favorite song of all time. It's really just kind of, it's one of those where the lyrics are really talking about the movie, but it's just strange. But I love how uh, they got the composer in there, and the composer is one of those Bond guys. Let's see, it's Joel McNeely. I see. It sounds very Bond-ish,
Yeah.
and no, I just love the sound and look of this movie. It's stupid, but I'll still give it 5 stars. I see its average rating is two stars, which makes sense.
Um, there's another movie too that Ray Fiennes is famous for in the 90s. Probably his most famous movie from the 90s. Infamous, maybe. But we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the leading lady of this movie.
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. That's that. I think you're talking about my favorite Ray Fiennes film. I'm a
Oh,
huge fan of that one,
yeah.
and I think
I saw I saw the review and I was like, yeah, I guess this.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Juliette Binoche and Ray Fiennes' previous work, and that was a an upset at the Oscars. I remember, for Juliette Binoche. And I know they've done more stuff together since then, but
Yeah.
but it must have been nice, and it was hard not to think about that while watching Wuthering Heights.
But yes, can you read the synopsis?
Sure, and then I'll tell you whether I agree with it or not. Let's see. Um, a passion, an obsession, a love that destroyed everyone it touched. That's pretty true. Uh, young orphan Heathcliff is adopted by the wealthy Earnshaw family and moves into their estate, Wuthering Heights. Soon, the new resident falls for his compassionate foster sister, Kathy. The two share a remarkable bond that seems unbreakable until Kathy, feeling the pressure of social convention, suppresses her feelings and marries Edgar Linton, a man of means who befits her stature. Heathcliff vows to win her back.
Um,
That that's a pretty good. I mean, it.
I think
I
that last
guess,
sentence kind of changes some things.
yes. Heathcliff vows to win her back, aka I'll have my revenge. Uh, but Heathcliff is I mean, one of the things is Earnshaw. The Earnshaw family doesn't feel like calling them a wealthy family is kind of, well, they feel like they're more middle class because they
Yeah.
have a farm and a house and servants, but they don't seem as wealthy as the Lintons next door. Thrushcross Grange is a much nicer place.
I feel like when you see people have houses like this, you automatically assume Wolf, but it's like, yeah, maybe they were like generations ago, and
Yeah,
they have the house.
right. And of course the big thing, what they're kind of being a little careful with, is they see that Kathy, feeling the pressure of social convention, suppresses her feelings and marries Edgar Linton. Well, she's kind of like, well, I I want to marry a guy with money, and Heathcliff doesn't have any. So, in a lot of ways, my wife pointed this out. This is really kind of the Great Gatsby. Is
Yeah,
you
that's what
have
I thought about.
Daisy. Daisy loves Gatsby, but can't marry him because he doesn't have any money, and she needs money, and so he goes off and gets money, probably through a bad guy crime kind of way, and
Yeah, they
then
never say in this movie. Do they say in the book, or is it maybe?
never. There's
Okay.
nothing. It's shocking that they give us nothing. Emily just leaves it up to our imagination. How did how did Heathcliff make his money? Now the fantastic comic strip cartoonist Kate Beaton from Canada. She does these great literary adaptations in comic strip form. So if you go to her website, Hark a Vagrant, you can see her adaptation of Wuthering Heights in comic strip form. And when they touch on how did Heathcliff make his money, uh, the servant Nellie says, "Oh, I'm sure he did it criminal ways. I don't have any imagination." But that was the reason why I got into Wuthering Heights and reading all of these Bronte novels this past year, was because I really liked Kate Beaton's comic strips about Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre that Emily's sister Charlotte wrote. And then there's this one comic, my absolute favorite comic strip ever, is called Dude Watching with the Brontes. And Kate draws Anne, Emily, and Charlotte Bronte watching men walk by, and they're all alcoholic douchebags. And Charlotte and Emily are all like, ooh, just cooing over them. And ooh, they look so brooding and mysterious. And they just love these guys that look like they're probably abusive and horrible. And then little Anne, the youngest sister, is like, they look terrible. And Charlotte says, "Oh, shut up, Anne. That's why nobody reads your books." And so I said, "All right, well, I'm going to start reading Anne's books first." So I read the Tenant of Wildfell Hall, which is considered the first feminist novel. It is wonderful. I highly recommend it. And then I read Agnes Grey, which was her first book, Anne's first book, and it was published the same time as Emily's one book, Wuthering Heights, which was published in 2 volumes. And then a third volume was this little Agnes Grey, which is a sweet little story, which is actually a smart idea. Because once you've survived reading Wuthering Heights, you really need like a sweet little love story to kind of heal after all the wounds you've probably suffered from Wuthering Heights. Um, so I read Anne's books first, which probably made it tough, because then it was all going to be downhill. Because then I read Jane Eyre by Charlotte, which was her breakout book. I think she tried to publish one called The Professor first, and they couldn't publish it. And then she submitted Jane Eyre, and they loved it, and everybody loved it. And then Emily published Wuthering Heights with Anne's first book, Agnes Grey, and then uh, everyone died from the
Tuberculosis.
consumption, the
Yeah.
TB. Yeah, yeah. Everybody died except Charlotte. Charlotte lived about 10 more years, I think. And so, yeah, that's why we didn't get very many more books from them. Charlotte wrote a few more, Villette and Shirley, which is I'm working through those now, and it's slow going. Uh, Charlotte's books are kind of more gothic romances, but her heroines do a lot of weird things I find frustrating, and her love interests are kind of weird. Anne's were really much more nicer and interesting, but then Emily, I like to say that Emily told her sisters to hold her beer, and let me show you how a gothic novel's written. And now she has legions of fans who are just like, oh yeah. Which I kind of wonder what the people who love Wuthering Heights, what they think of themselves. You know, do they have a high, do they have a personal esteem problem or something? I don't know. I don't know. It just seems Wuthering Heights is just so rough. It's
Was
ooh,
was Heathcliff the first? Oh, this guy's definitely me.
yeah, it's true. Yes, he's an incel. Yeah, it is. It is pretty. He's kind of a Bond villain too, because
Oh, he's
he's
played by
he's
Bond.
he's wronged and as a kid, and we feel sorry for him because it's racism. It's blatant
Yeah,
racism.
which I wanted
And
to bring up. There was like some controversy because they got Jacob Elordi, I think is his name, to play Heathcliff in the new movie, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is whitewashing."
right,
So
but
it
it's
gave
not
me the
like that.
impression that Heathcliff was black, but I don't think that's the case, is it?
Right. Well, from the text, a few times they refer to him as a gypsy,
Yeah.
and but then Heathcliff himself, only one point in the book when he's referring to his son, he said the only thing that's special to him about his son is that his son doesn't have white blood. So we do actually have that one time where Heathcliff is basically saying, I am not white.
Mhm.
And he's just, you feel sorry for him because yeah, these people all mistreated him. They kicked him out. They kick him out of the house. They make him work as a servant, and they're brutal to him and everything. And so he has our sympathy. And then for his revenge, he's just going to make everyone miserable and take over everything. And he does. So it's kind of like he's kind of an anti-hero who's like, yeah, I'm going to destroy everybody and everything. And you're like, oh, and he does. Um, and if he was nice to anyone, uh, it's kind of because he's not even nice to Kathy. They're
Yeah.
really rough on each other.
There's
And
like a sorry, go ahead.
but yeah, when he's able to, like, his main abuser is Kathy's older brother Henley,
Mhm.
and Henley has a son Hareton, and Heathcliff is somehow able to make an ally with Hareton and make him love him and respect him, even though he still mistreats him because he kind of like, I'm going to treat you like the stable boy that your father made me, and yet still he kind of like creates this bond with him that when Kathy's daughter, Kathy, too, I always wonder how to set them apart. I call her Kathy Jr. So when Kathy Jr. comes over, and it's still the same actress, so it makes it even more confusing, comes over and meets Heta, her cousin, and she looks to him to be an ally. He's kind of like, don't ask me to stand up to Heathcliff because he's the devil. So yeah, I've watched a bunch of adaptations of this story at this point, 5 others, and so Laurence Olivier was Heathcliff in 1939. That was a Best Picture nomination, and it was okay. I mean, Laurence Olivier wasn't a very good Heathcliff, in my opinion. I mean, he was tall and handsome, and that's great, but he was never like scary. I
Yeah.
mean, for Laurence Olivier to be scary, he has to be a Nazi dentist in Marathon Man. Then he's blood curdling. Then he's terrifying. But he's never really scary as Heathcliff. Apparently, he and the actress who played Kathy, Merle Oberon, uh, hated each other. And
Which you think would help with the
Yeah.
performances.
Yeah, they really hated each other, and she ran off the set screaming that he had spit at her during a dialogue exchange, and he was like, "Oh, woman, you know, what's a little bit of spittle?" And at the same time, he was shacking up with Vivian Leigh, who was currently making Gone with the Wind, and that's the tell-all movie I want to see because they were both married to other people, and it was a scandal. It was scandalous that they were living together. And so that was fascinating. And also that both Merle Oberon and Vivian Leigh were both born in India. That was surprising news to me. Merle was trying to hide that one of her parents was half Indian, half Chinese, I think. Yeah. And so in a way, she kind of had where she was hiding something in a way that Heathcliff is struggling with.
I think I've heard about her. She won an Oscar, right?
I think so.
Was
Yes.
nominated at least.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because I remember hearing that there was like retroactively there was an actress that was, oh no, she's the first ever Asian to
Right.
nation or win because that had come out that she is half Asian or
Yeah, yeah.
via being southeast and South Asian.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and she was good. My favorite moment in the 1939 version, and this is an interesting distinction, is that my favorite moment in the 1939 version was when Merle Oberon's Kathy learns that Heathcliff is going to marry her sister-in-law, Isabella. She turns to her husband, Edgar Linton, played by David Niven, which is awesome. Uh, she says, "Get your pistols, go after them, kill him, stop them from marrying. This marriage cannot be." So she, her love for Heathcliff is such that when she finds out he's going to marry somebody else, she tells her husband to kill him, which I thought was awesome. But that scene doesn't happen in the book. Uh, the uh, the 1992 Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Binoche version was a little closer to the book because it didn't have that that kind of moment because when Kathy is sick and dying while pregnant, while starving herself in her tantrum, um, they don't tell her about Heathcliff running off with Isabella.
Yeah.
So you don't
Eh,
have like a big moment like that.
that is that scene and then the following scene are my favorite parts of this movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Just kind of there like back and forth while she's dying.
Yeah.
She goes from basically saying that like you killed me to like, hey, I forgive you, and then Heathcliff not
Right.
taking
And not
for
surprising, that scene, that kind of exchange is in the book and in every version of the story. The interesting thing is that the book, Kathy doesn't know Heathcliff's married Isabella,
yeah.
because they didn't want to upset her. They don't tell her. So the exchange there, where they're kind of like, you pushed me away, well, you left, and all that kind of back and forth. They're not even considering this marriage with Isabella, who is played in this version by the great Sophie Ward, who is fantastic. When she was young, she was in Young Sherlock Holmes, and the last movie I saw her was she chokes to death in the opening scene of The Haunting of Julia, which is terrifying. And she was but the first time I saw her was a movie called A Dark Adapted Eye, and she's really good in that. But she's popped up quite a bit, so I was glad to see her, even though they didn't give her as much to do except be beat up by Heathcliff once they get married, and then they just kind of like forget about her, which is too bad.
Yeah.
But
Which is one of my problems with this movie, but I'll come back to that.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's great. My favorite version with Rosemary Harris and Richard Burton in a 1958 teleplay, uh, when Kathy realizes that Heathcliff's going to marry Isabella, instead of asking her husband to kill Heathcliff, she asks her husband to kill her um, because she doesn't want to live in a world with Heathcliff married to somebody else. And it's just, that's just amazing. But of course, what these Cathys are all forgetting is that the reason why Heathcliff is so pissed off is because she married somebody else. And
Yeah.
she was like, but dude, my plan was to marry somebody with money and then I could take care of you, because her older brother, Hindley, was being mean to Heathcliff. So she was trying to take one for the team to help Heathcliff out. And Heathcliff finds it unforgivable.
Yeah,
And so he's just going to be mad about that forever. So yeah, it's I mean, I do like this version, but it's kind of
Do most versions make it clear that he hears? Like, do they
yes.
like show a scene of him kind of like eavesdropping or something?
Oh yeah. I think every version makes it so that he finds out. The Richard Burton version from '58 that I really like, he is coming to tell her, let's run away tonight. And I really liked that aspect. He says he gets their things and he's walking into her room to tell her, let's go, when he hears her say, I can't marry Heathcliff because Heathcliff would degrade me.
Yeah.
And then he storms off. And that's what every version has, is that he's there and she doesn't realize it. And he runs away. Now, I highly recommend the 1988 Japanese adaptation called Onimaru. That's amazing. And I believe it's available on Mubi. And I checked it out last week. It was fantastic. I've also seen Ian McShane do a 3-hour, 4-part miniseries in 1967 called Wuthering Heights. I think that's available on YouTube. Ian McShane plays Heathcliff. He's fantastic. And he's a little more calmer, but still scary and not as theatrical. The tragedy is that they shot it in color and then the BBC destroyed the color masters and all we have is the black and white now, which is just too bad. But it was
so
the first
stories.
Yeah, it was
stories about BBC just destroying their stuff.
Yeah.
Let's tape all these Doctor Who tapes. Who cares?
Yeah, they got rid of a lot of Doctor Who too, and but that version is good because it was one of the first I've seen that actually have the Yorkshire Moors in it. And then I also saw the other night the 1970 version with Timothy Dalton, and that one really inflated the character of Hindley into a much bigger character, and it was played by Julian Glover, which was great because he was a Bond villain in 40 Your Eyes Only. And of course, Timothy Dalton would eventually be Bond. And so you had a Bond versus a Bond villain. So had some troubles. But it had a really bad score and had some interesting choices. It was a lot more brutal too. Timothy Dalton, I always thought was the most gentle man to play James Bond, and his Heathcliff really likes it rough. He's slapping Kathy and Isabella around while during their love scenes. It's pretty brutal, pretty kind of stomach churning, really. I was like, Timothy, no. But yes, there's still a lot more. I still want to see Tom Hardy play Heathcliff. He was in a more recent version, and then there's a 2011 version that's on the Criterion Collection where they actually have a black actor playing Heathcliff, and I believe it's the only movie he was ever in. But I am curious about that one too, so I'll probably check those out this next week before the Margot Robbie one comes out, so that so we can be Wuthering Heights scholars checking these out. And but yeah, this one was pretty good. I kind of I rank this 1992 Ralph Fiennes version kind of under the Richard Burton, Rosemary Harris, 1958 teleplay, and the Japanese Onimaru 1988 version. Those are my two top favorites. But then this one's pretty good because it's definitely shot on location in the North Yorkshire. Some of the limestone features in it are just jaw-dropping. I had no idea. Now I work on the History Channel show Ancient Aliens, and so we're often showing bizarre rock formations around the world. And I don't think we've ever showed this limestone pavement that's at the Winskill Stones Nature Reserve in North Yorkshire. But wow, it's just alien. It looks so weird. And I was just flabbergasted because they're these it's those tender moments where they're standing by that lone tree and the ground is just filled with these really strange shaped stones. And there are a couple where there's these big pillars that look like they're from Stonehenge where they're standing next to.
Yeah.
And so often I was distracted from the tenderness of the scene by like, what the hell is with these rocks?
Which it's funny. They are. I don't know. I'm assuming everything in this is in the book. But the rocks are kind of mentioned when she's explaining like her thoughts on Linton and Heathcliff, or like she compares Linton to foliage, you know.
Right.
And then she compares.
I believe you're right. That is in the book where she, Heathcliff's her rock.
Yeah.
And
which it's like.
Yeah.
I imagine like the idea of weird kind of like rocks are just in her head all the time because she's surrounded by them.
Yeah. And let's see. Oh, and Janet McTeer and Ralph Fiennes were in the menu together. Janet McTeer.
Oh, that's where I recognize her from.
Yes. Yes. The funny thing is when I saw the menu, I was like, who is this Janet McTeer who's playing the food critic? I think she looks so familiar. And I looked back and I was like, I couldn't really figure it out. And so when I saw her here, I was like, oh my gosh, there she is again. And
she's in Ozarks, which is where which is like I to be fair, I saw Ozarks before the menu, so that probably is where I recognize her from. But I was like, no, there's something else that I know her in.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's deceptively she's tall. She's 6'1", so they don't try to focus on that, but every now and then you'll realize how much taller she is from everybody else.
Yeah, she's sitting a lot, or she's kind of on a slope. One, I don't think actress is the proper term from this, but you know what? Before I bring her up, I wanted to point out something funny too about this movie. This movie is technically titled Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights.
Right.
And I thought it was just the 90s had this trend where like Coppola was like, oh, since we made Dracula pretty close to the book, we're gonna call it Bram Stoker's Dracula. And then because Mary Shelley was produced by the same people, because Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was produced by the same people, they did it again to like, be like, oh, it's like Dracula. It's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And then we've kind of talked about this in passing. There's there was another one I can't remember what it was. No, sorry. That was a joke that we made, that they should have had Robert Louis Stevenson's Mary Riley.
Yes.
So I had initially thought that like this was like kind of like part of that trend, but no, they did it because the people there's a studio that owns the rights to Wuthering Heights, and they're like, you can't call this movie Wuthering Heights, Paramount, we'll sue you. So they're just like, let's just put Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights so there's no confusion.
Huh. Interesting.
But I wonder if that choice was why they felt they had to justify the title. So they made sure to include Emily Bronte as the narrator.
Right. Yeah,
and who plays Emily?
Yeah. Yeah, it was very well cast. They had Sinead O'Connor play Emily, and she looked great. I recognized her instantly, and she wasn't credited. She's a ghost there, and I don't think she ever actually speaks on film. We're hearing her voice, so she's very ghostly.
Yeah,
and she kind of appears there and says, well, here's this dilapidated old house, and I'm going to make a story up about it. And I thought, oh, interesting. That's
It's
probably
kind of
how it
like
happened.
based off what little I've read about Emily Bronte. It seems that that's what she used to do. She used to just kind of walk around the moors looking at like the dilapidated like former houses there.
Yes, I'm far more cynical. From what I've been reading about the Brontes, my theory is because Charlotte and Anne both went out more to school, and they were both governesses. So they were working, they were meeting people. Emily stayed behind. And there's been some conjecture that perhaps she was on the spectrum and that she didn't relate to people as well. And
Which
that's
I
why,
buy.
yeah, yeah. So
Well,
she kind of liked being alone, they say. They like imagining her tromping off around the moors by herself, and that's very likely what it was. But she had a very big imaginative world with her sisters and wrote all this poetry about the land of Gondal that she and Anne kind of created. And I like to think that Gondal may have even influenced Tolkien to name Gondor after it. I,
oh,
I, I haven't heard anything that that's true, but
that is
I
interesting.
I like to think that. Um, but I think where Emily's getting her material is apparently one of her big influences was they had a house servant named Tabitha Ackroyd, Tabby. And Tabby would tell the girls all the local gossip, which may have not been age appropriate. And I think Emily was inspired by all of the scandals around the Yorkshire neighborhood. And that's where Wuthering Heights comes from. That's why everyone's so mean and scandalous, is that that's kind of what she was going off of. Meanwhile, both Anne and Charlotte wrote about governesses because they were governesses and they were meeting men and they were like daydreaming. Charlotte was constantly wanting to marry a professor, an older man, and she did. Um, mainly because she didn't die like her other sisters, and the tragic. But uh, but yeah, Emily, I think, was just writing about scandal and was kind of creating this world where everyone's kind of at each other's throats. And but we do get a glimmer of a happy ending, which I'm glad is there after things have been so rough. And
I
I
wonder if that's why they chose to have like a focus at like the kind of the next generation
mhm.
because they were gonna go so hard with like how shitty all three of the main characters are.
Yeah.
So they wanted to have at least like, well, at least their kids. Uh,
Yeah,
'Cause,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
and,
Sorry,
this
I just
version
I had the thought about how I basically had to explain the incest because it is it let me look at his name. I'm sorry, I'm unprofessional.
so, well, because Hetton is Henley's
Hen
son,
yeah,
and
Henton.
Hetton's the brother of Kathy, and Kathy has a daughter, Kathy, and so Kathy Jr. is the happy ending is between Kathy Jr. and Hetton, who, are cousins, first cousins, and
Yeah.
because their parents were siblings. So yeah, that's kind of our light at the end of the tunnel to get us through. And what's neat about Ray Fiennes' performance, and it's neat because it's in the book too, is that Heathcliff kind of realizes near the end that his revenge, he could really end it. In fact, he even tells uh Nellie, with Janet McTeer, near the end when he decides just to stop eating and he starts seeing ghostly images and says, um, I could have the ultimate revenge. I could just ruin everybody's life. I could tell Kathy and Hetton never to talk to each other and keep them apart. And I could destroy Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange so that everything is destroyed. And that would be my revenge. But fuck it. Just forget it. I'm kind of done. I've won, everybody's miserable. I own everything, so who cares anymore? Just
Yeah.
I know I should follow through, but who cares?
Which,
And then
like,
he starts seeing the ghost of Kathy everywhere, and he's
which
like,
apparently is real, at least as far as we know, because another
"Yeah,
character, that's what starts the whole story, is another character
right."
sees the ghost of Kathy.
Right, which they thankfully put in because the other night I watched the Timothy Dalton version and they left that out. There is no ghost at the window, and that's like one of the biggest scenes of the book. And they didn't put it in there, and I was kind of wow. Um, this one though, so far about half the versions I've seen have flashbacks the way the book does. So the way the book does, and like a lot of adaptations, it begins with the guy who's renting the house from older Heathcliff, and then he interacts with the ghost of Kathy. And then he says, "What the heck? You know, there's this ghostly woman outside my window saying her name was Kathy and calling for Heathcliff." And Heathcliff is like, "Ah, I've been waiting for her to come back." And then Nellie tells the lodger, the renter, the whole story, and so it's all in flashback. So about half the versions I've seen have the flashback like that, whereas this version we tell it straightforward, don't we? We
Yeah.
kind of that scene comes near the end, so it's like chronologically correct. Um, Everything goes uh, pretty much uh, along the line. At least we get that ghost scene, so that it can get kind of spooky there toward the end. Um, but yeah, so it just kind of makes it this gothic sort of romance, sort of ghost story, sort of.
It's
Uh,
more of like a revenge story, if anything. It's
yeah,
the
yeah,
guy getting, it's almost like the Count of Monte Cristo, but if it only focused on the part of Edward Dantes fucking over everybody.
yeah. Because
Um,
the very end of the book is it talks about, you know, how locals are afraid that they see the ghost of Kathy and Heathcliff walking around the moors, and so they're kind of spooked about the whole story. But the character of the lodger is your main narrator, and he goes to visit their graves, and he said, "You know, I think if you look at the graves, I think you're going to think that they're quiet now, that they've finally come to rest." So it kind of is this nice little story. So she wasn't going to leave us with, yeah, they're going to be haunting the Yorkshire moors forever. The narrator ends it with, you know, I think they're at rest now. I think they can finally sleep, and this is good. This is a good thing. They, you
they
know,
they have a throuple
it's
in
finally
heaven.
over. And uh and if uh and of course, I guess, to tie the Margot Robbie version in, we could say, well, because we've made so many plastic Barbies that we've destroyed the soil of the ground with all the plastic. That yes, that we've Oppenheimered ourselves to. But yes, I'm very curious what they do, how they do their version.
Yeah.
But this version was good because, I mean, Rafe and Juliet are both beautiful people with beautiful eyes, and not the best hair really in this movie. What was your thoughts about their hair?
Uh,
It was kind of
it's
80s
funny
rock
because like
music video hair.
yeah, because like I want to make it clear this was like a like not maybe not a huge movie, but this was like a major Paramount like movie.
Yeah.
But their hair is very hair feels like very much like low budget TV hair.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of.
Um,
Kinda like, yeah, the nastiest thing I had to say about Thunderbolts, which I love Thunderbolts, but yes, that, Sebastian Stan's wigs weren't
uh,
very good.
yeah, I don't know why they made it like he looked fine with just his regular hair in the
Yeah,
Falcon the Winter Soldier. I don't know why they gave him a bob.
maybe it was because he had just played Trump. He had destroyed his hair in that Trump movie. They had to
Um,
give him
but
wigs.
yeah, what you're saying about their eyes, especially from Rafe Fiennes. Rafe Fiennes like says so much with his eyes. They seemed like dead half the time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think it just represents the fact that, like, especially like in the later parts of the movie, it just represents the fact that it's just all he cares about is like spurring this woman who he felt like she just couldn't love him because of just what he is, when
right.
that really wasn't the case. It was just they're basically, if anything, they're just victims of the society of the time.
Yeah.
Like if it was in the modern times, they wouldn't like have had like, yeah, fuck you, I'm gonna go with Heathcliff. We're gonna go, we'll go both work at McDonald's. Who gives a shit? Um, it is kind of nice that we got like a little bit of like their romance at the beginning
Yeah.
before Edgar Linton enters the picture, and then
Yeah.
frequently makes fun of him to his. I love the scene when like she like kind of when they like when she brings them to like their when they all come back home, and like Heathcliff is there just to kind of see what's going on, and then she runs up to him and just like keeps laughing, and he's just like, what are you laughing at me for? I'm not here to be laughed at."
Right. Yeah, he's so super defensive and like, I will not be laughed at. And yeah, that moment I thought this is funny because the other versions of other adaptations have had that moment, but it's really funny in that they make a deal about him being really dirty, and she takes his hands and gets dirty, and then he storms out. I feel like they might have cut a line from Kathy, because in the book and other versions she says like, "Oh, you're so dirty." She
Yeah,
keeps
yeah,
kind of, because at that point she's all been cleaned up because she
yeah,
stayed with the richer Lintons, and they made her into a lady, and everyone's kind of like, "Oh, she realizes she could have it good." And then she makes fun of her stable boy boyfriend, and he's all super defensive about dirty, and he doesn't want to wash. And but yeah, that earlier scene where they're kind of snuggling in a bed together on Sunday while everyone else is praying downstairs, that's pretty spicy.
yeah.
And then the servant Joseph comes in and yells at him. Uh,
We were watching that scene, and it's like, man, I can't wait for the movie to end with them doing this again. It's like, oh no. But yeah, it's just the idea that Heathcliff just he hears part of like the conversation that she has with Nellie,
right,
and is like, yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna become rich off of crime. I don't know what crime you would do in the
right,
1700s.
right.
Like in
Yeah,
Gatsby, it was like, oh yeah, prohibition stuff. That's how I
yeah.
got rich.
Yeah,
Uh,
they insinuate that he's traveled a lot, but heck, he could have just been a highwayman, you would think.
she just stole money. That was it. Um, but yeah, he comes back and it's basically like, oh, you guys are poor now. If only someone had money or something. And then he just makes it his like his life mission to destroy Edgar Linton's legacy,
Yeah,
all for having the gall of marrying the woman he loves.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like wasn't his fault. It's really a red flag for bachelors to look for. If you're looking to marry someone, just make sure they don't have a super jealous boyfriend.
Yeah, I love the thing that made me realize, like, okay, maybe this isn't the romantic story that I've always had it in my head was when he takes out like a paper and he's like, hey, I've been marking the days that you hang out with him instead of me, and these are the days that you hang out with me. It's like, oh, this guy is jealous as fuck.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I think in this version, the meanest thing that Ray Fiennes does is to Kathy's daughter when he kidnaps her and throws her like on the stairs, throws her down on the floor, and hits her and says, "You're gonna marry my son. You're not gonna leave here until you marry my son." And it's just it's just terrible. But in the book, the worst thing I think he does is that they didn't show this part, but his wife Sophie Ward, they show he's beating her, and then later she just disappears, and they say, "Oh yeah, she ran away and she had his son," and they skip enough times for the son to grow up and move back, and that's who Heathcliff wants Kathy's daughter to marry so that he can inherit everything. And what we missed was the night that Sophie Ward's character, Isabella Heathcliff's wife, runs away, is the night that she makes him mad and he throws a knife at her head and it slashes her throat and she runs bleeding and screaming across the moors, raining and windswept and everything. And she runs away. And we learn later that when she gives birth in London, that she must have done that while pregnant. So I'm like, I've been waiting for a version to show that. No one's shown that yet that I've seen. To see a pregnant woman, her husband cuts her throat and she runs across the moors bleeding to escape. I'm like, oh man, Heathcliff, what a catch.
Do most versions have his son, or is he?
No, in fact, the one I just watched with Timothy Dalton from 1970, the only kid they have is Hatton, and then they say that he dies as a
Oh wow!
baby, and then they don't have Linton and they don't have Kathy Jr., and so they totally skip the second half of the book.
From what I
And
understand, most adaptations just end when Kathy dies.
right, I mean, so far, let's see what I've got. I've got uh, in the 39 version, yeah, they don't have the kids. In the let's see, in the Richard Burton, Rosemary Harris version, they don't have the kids. And but they do have the kids in the 3-hour miniseries with Ian McShane. They have enough time to do the second half.
Yeah.
They do have the kids in the Japanese version in 1988, which again, I highly recommend, but it is not for the squeamish. There is more blood, more violence,
I can imagine.
incest and rape. It is just all over the top, and I loved it. It was so violent.
I feel like if you cut out the like the kind of like the second generation is what I like to call them. The next, if Emily Bronte ever made a spinoff, she would just call it Wuthering Heights: The Next Generation.
Well, in a way, the way it was published was 2 volumes. The second volume begins when Kathy has her baby and dies. That's the first sentence.
Okay.
So basically Kathy like dies in the first sentence of the second volume. So yeah, that's where they often ended. Just to keep it shorter and to make it more of a romance, because then it's just that's what you focus on.
That's what I wanted to say is if you kind of remove this part, I can kind of see how the romance is, because like he comes back, they're angry at each other, he tries like get her revenge, and then she dies and he loses her, and then he basically says like I want her to haunt me for the rest of her life, and it's like, oh, that was a tragic love story. But then when you have the kids, it's like, oh my god, this guy's trying to manipulate. This guy's trying to make sure that the last remaining moments of Edgar's life are awful, and he's like putting it on his like technically his nephew and his son.
Yeah.
And then the woman, the daughter of the woman that he loves, and it's just like, Jesus, man.
Yeah, poor I mean, of course, again, every time you feel sympathy for any of the characters, they'll do bad things. Like Edgar Linton, who, I like to often try to characterize that, oh, he's a nice guy and he just is married into this horrible family and didn't realize about Heathcliff. But of course he is racist. He's a kind of a rich, stuffy, cold person, and he doesn't treat his wife very well either. But of course she's trying to manipulate him by throwing tantrums and being sick. And so it's
I love that scene when like she basically like locks the door and she tells him, no, come on, if you want to hit Heathcliff, do it here. And then
Yes.
he's like goads him. I love how he goads him into hitting him, and then when he does, he gets all pissy about it.
Yeah. That was well done because some versions they don't have that, and that's my favorite part of the book because it's really the only time anyone stands up to Heathcliff is when he punches in the book. He punches him in the throat, and so that was pretty. That was they did it pretty well, and Heathcliff is like staggered by it. And then he's like, "Well, I'm going to kill him now." And Kathy's like, "Nope, nope, you've ruined everything. Leave." He's gonna grab his friends. And he's gonna grab the farm hands, and they're gonna come in with guns, and they're gonna kill you. So you gotta leave. You gotta leave now. And but yes, the Edgar Linton's so far. I've seen David Niven play him. He was great in 39. Yeah, and then Denholm Elliott played him in 58. That he was perfect. I love him from the
Marcus from
yeah.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, yeah. So Denholm Elliott is fantastic. He's the one that Rosemary Harris says, "Kill me, kill me. I won't. I don't want to live with Heathcliff marrying your sister." And then in the 3-hour miniseries, the one with Ian McShane from Deadwood playing Heathcliff, the Edgar is played by the same guy that plays Red Leader in Star Wars: A New Hope.
What
I
the heck?
I was so happy to see him. I was like, oh yeah. Try to, MST3K it with all the Star Wars trench run jokes I could every time he was on screen. And of course here, let's see, who was Hindley in this version? Oh, it was Jeremy Northam. He's always good. He's always very good.
Oh, from Mimic.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeremy Northam's fun. And then yeah, good old Julian Glover played him in the 1970 version with Timothy Dalton. And he had like a much bigger part. In fact, spoiler alert, the way they cut Wuthering Heights short in that because they're not doing the kids, they have Hindley kill Heathcliff.
Oh wow.
Right after Kathy's death. Heathcliff feels he sees her ghost, and we see her ghost too. And so he's following her back to Wuthering Heights. And there's a scene in the book and several of the versions where Hindley is drunk and desperate and has no money and hates Heathcliff, and he tells Isabella, Heathcliff's wife, "Hey, I'm going to shoot him." And she warns him, and he doesn't end up shooting him. But in the 1970 version, Julian Glover shoots him, kills Heathcliff, and then Heathcliff suddenly finds himself transported back to his favorite rock that he shared with Kathy, and then they go off walking into the moors together, and it ends. So we don't need any of the kids. Because, like you said, that's how they focus it on a romance.
Mm-hmm.
They just cut out all the kids and the revenge, and I thought, oh, well, that was actually pretty good because it made Hindley a much bigger character.
It's gonna be weird if I watch any other adaptations of this. I'm just gonna be like, the movie's gonna end, and it's like, oh, tragic romance, and I'm just gonna be like, no, this asshole's gonna like kidnap a girl and force her to marry.
Oh, wouldn't it be funny if they did it as like a post-credit sequence? It's like, Kathy's dead. Oh, the end. Nope. Now my reign of terror begins.
Juliette Binoche, is that how you say it?
Oh, Binoche. Juliette Binoche.
You've said it multiple times, and I still got it wrong. I don't know how I did that, but Juliette Binoche, probably most famous for being in movies like Godzilla and Ghost in the Shell.
Well, in our house, we have worshipped her in her foreign films. She's the star of Blue in the Three Colors trilogy, and which I highly recommend, although it's thoroughly depressing. But the English Patient, it's really wonderful. Like we were talking about before, how she stole the Oscar from Lauren Bacall that year, who everyone thought was going to win for The Mirror Has Two Faces. And Juliette Binoche actually accepted it by apologizing to Lauren Bacall. I'm sorry, I thought you were going to win this. But of course, the problem with the English Patient Oscars was that they nominated people for the wrong thing. They nominated Juliette Binoche for Best Supporting Actress, when in fact she's the main character of the story of the
Yeah.
movie. And she is learning about Kristen Scott Thomas's character from the dying patient that Ralph Fiennes plays. And Kristen Scott Thomas got nominated as the best actress, even though she's in a very little of the movie because we're just finding about her in flashbacks.
Kind of like the
And
Shakespeare in Love thing when Judi Dench got Best Supporting Actress and she's in it for
yeah,
like 10 minutes.
yeah, exactly. He's like, yeah, but yeah, again, it's because we focus on a love story so much that even if that character's not in as much of the movie, we'll still give them like, yeah, they're the main characters. So in a lot of ways, the English Patient is kind of like Wuthering Heights, because we think of Kathy as the main character when really she doesn't make it through the first half of the book, and then we're just kind of remembering her. So
Yeah. Which I like that the movie casted her to play Kathy too.
yeah, yeah.
Not only because
And
I
that,
think she's pretty good just off of this movie. I think she's a good actress, but like kind of like that. It helps showcase just Heathcliff's like revenge that he can't get over. It's like now,
right.
oh, it kind of looks like she looks like my Kathy, so now I need to punish her too for.
Yes. Now, it wasn't the first time they'd done that. The Ian McShane version with Angela Scalar playing both Kathys, that was the first time I'd seen that happen. And they did it the same way, where they had Kathy be a brunette and then her daughter be the same actress with a blonde wig. And although I'm pretty sure in the book, both Kathys are blonde. And so, but I'm sure they just did it to differentiate. And but yeah, it worked. It worked, and she differentiated her acting enough so that she could be the two different Kathys. And yet we're kind of like, as an audience, we're kind of looking at Heathcliff mistreating Kathy's daughter, who looks so much like her, that we're like, how could you, if you really loved Kathy, and here's her spitting image, her clone, her daughter, and you're mistreating her? And that's really just shocking.
Yeah, I did
And
not think the story was going to go that way. I thought it was going to be like, okay, this is his chance to finally
right,
get over
right,
this
could
hatred he's had.
in a
I
yeah,
guess it was, but
right.
not in the way I thought.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like I guess I'm glad that they didn't have him romance her, and because that would have been a little skeevy.
Yeah.
But and there have been other versions where when we really think that Kathy and Heathcliff have been having sex, we do kind of wonder, is Kathy Jr. Heathcliff's daughter? Did he impregnate her? Now, in fact, some of them really seem to imply it. The 1970 version with Timothy Dalton, that's the definite implication, because we see them having sex, spoilers, and and then she's pregnant when she's sick, and then the movie just ends when she dies. So she took the baby with her, tragically, and so the story isn't going to continue, and they don't even like talk about it. They mention that she's pregnant, and it's his daughter, and you even see this really evil grin when Heathcliff learns that because Edgar Linton had not been sleeping with his wife because she wouldn't go to him, wouldn't let him, and everyone in the house apparently knew that. And now that she's pregnant, they tell Heathcliff, well, when the baby's born, they're going to be looking at the color of his eyes. Like, oh boy, that's going to be different. And then the movie ends, and we're like, what? So there's no kid? Like, oh man. But the Japanese version also kind of has, we get some sex scenes, and there's a lot of kind of thinking that when Kathy goes to, when that Kathy character, although they all have different names because it's feudal Japan and it's all shot around the volcanoes. If there's a more bleak setting than the Yorkshire Moors, I'm thinking Japanese volcanoes wins. It's really good. It's really fantastic. And so that one kind of even gives you the sense that when Kathy goes to marry the Edgar Linton character, she's already pregnant with Heathcliff's baby. Fantastic. Um, yeah, it's just, and again, it just goes to show that Emily Bronte probably got all of these ideas from town gossip, from scandal. And you're like, yeah, 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 where everyone's kind of wondering who's the real father and that kind of stuff. But they in the book though, and this is probably because it was 1840s and these are young women writing, and they don't really have any sex scenes, and they really let the reader know that a character's pregnant really, really late. It's like, it's like, yes, Kathy died, and oh, by the way, she had a baby. And you're like, what? Why did you bury that? And yes, when you find out that Isabella escaped Heathcliff running across the rain-swept moors bleeding, it says, oh yeah, and then she later had a baby. Oh, by the way, yeah, she must have been pregnant. Ah. But yeah. Jennifer was even telling me, was like, well, the Brontes, they're not going to talk about. He's like, can you even say the word pregnant? That book is not, that the word pregnant doesn't appear in these books. Although I have to give it to Emily for her language. Uh, the worst swear word that both her sisters, Charlotte and Anne, use in their books is very Charles M. Schultz Peanuts worthy. It's blockhead. Like the worst thing that they'll call a character is blockhead.
Not they
Now,
didn't even throw in a
uh,
couple of dams or anything.
right. And then Emily says, "Hold my beer," and Heathcliff uses the term "slut" a number of times.
Yeah, he used it in the movie. He called Isabella a slut.
Yeah, his
That
own
was,
wife. Like,
uh,
yeah, she's a slut. And you're like, ooh, wow, no blockheads here.
I did want to talk about like probably the thing that kind of holds me back from like saying this movie is great
Mhm.
is because they want to adapt so much, and as I've kind of come to realize from the talks about this movie, they made sure to adapt like more things than any other adaptation did. But the movie's 100 minutes long.
Mm,
So
yeah,
there are scenes that like they feel like they take a long time, and then there's scenes that are just like, okay, now we're this many now we're this many years into the future. And it's like,
yeah.
wait, what? What's going on?
Yeah, jarring time jumps, and they'll do things like, "Oh yeah, Isabella's gone. She's dead, and she had a kid, and he's grown up now."
I feel like 50 years must pass in this movie, and it feels like two passed.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like it's less of a pacing issue and more of just like the movie's just overstuffed with like events. So like a lot of the times
Right.
like things like can't breathe, and it's just you don't know how much time has passed. Um because
Yeah.
like obviously from Kathy's death to when the second part of the story, well, I I guess it's more the last 30 minutes that the second volume of the story happens. But like the last 30 minutes are just like 15 years in the future, and you
Yeah.
just kind of get whiplash from it all.
Yeah. Yeah, what did you think of the music?
Oh, I really like the music.
Yeah. It
Um
was it would kinda, like, pipe up every now and then and go, "I'm here." The
yeah.
mix I was listening, the music seemed kind of really quiet, and,
Yeah, where did you watch this from? Oh,
I watched it on, I think Amazon Prime. I think I got it on Amazon Prime.
okay. I watched this on Pluto.
Ah,
So I had a couple commercials every now and then. Mine sounded like I was listening to this in like a cave.
mhm.
Everyone had like kind of like a ghostly quality to like the sound of their voice and everything. But yeah, the score was done by Ryuichi Sakamoto, who
Oh,
I've never heard of him before, but like looking at, I recognize like quite a bit of his movies that he's worked on.
nice.
The Revenant being like probably one of the Revenant and the Last Empire. Sorry, the Revenant and the Last Emperor probably being like his biggest movies that he's worked on.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed the music. As I told you before we recorded, there's a couple notes in the leitmotif that probably said that word wrong. I don't care.
The
That,
leitmotif.
reminded me of the Chow Yun Fat's theme from the Better Tomorrow movies.
Yeah, I heard it. That was some similarity there. Yeah.
So I kept thinking of like, oh, when's Heathcliff gonna like just break into Edgar's house and just shoot him with an Uzi or something?
Right. Which is something I often thought while reading the book. I was like, when are these characters really going to just get cut loose? And what is it that Michael Keaton tells Jack Nicholson? You
Get
want
nuts.
to.
You want to get nuts, and let's get nuts.
Yes, yes, I wanted that in Wuthering Heights. I wanted somebody to like turn on each other, like, want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. I kept telling my wife while I was reading it, like, so when is somebody going to throw acid into somebody else's
You
face?
know, if Alexander Dumas wrote this, he would have just had them sword fight at the end.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I
Nice.
don't think Alexander Dumas is more of an adventure guy. I don't know if he was a romance guy.
Right, right. Mm.
But other than the pacing issues, this was good enough that I want to explore the other adaptations.
Yeah.
Maybe even the new one that's coming out.
Yes.
I really liked Ralph Fiennes in this one. The best the thing that I love about Ralph Fiennes is he has such range that he could play like any character. He can play
Right.
villains. He can play civic villains like in Red Dragon. Uh, Evil villains like in Schindler's List. He can also play comedy really well, like in Bruges or like Hail Caesar, and he can play
The
romantic
Grand
leads.
Yeah, the Grand Budapest Hotel is awesome.
Yeah. Um. So like someone of his range, like you can really like he's really perfect for someone like Heathcliff who has so many different like if you feel so many different emotions watching him throughout the story.
Yeah. 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 He is just so much fun to watch. So good. And oh, he was even the voice of Alfred in Lego Batman.
Yeah.
He's got a great voice. He's just intoxicating to watch. And yeah, like he's a really good Heathcliff because you can he can get your sympathy, but he can also be just scary evil. Um, so it was a nice one to walk the line. But yeah, yeah, this was a good pick, good choice. I
Yeah.
rank it currently third in my adaptations I've seen, third out of six, because I put the Japanese Onimaru and the Richard Burton, Rosemary Harris teleplay from 1958 higher, just because those were just a lot of fun and just great and shocking. And but this one was also this was a good adaptation of the full thing, and very nice.
Yeah.
And
And then it's my favorite Wuthering Heights adaptation because I haven't seen the other ones. I'm
one
gonna
for
go watch.
one.
You know what? Next one. I'm gonna go watch I think it's Lifetime channel one where it's Wuthering High and it's about high school kids.
Oh, yes, yes. I've heard about that one. Uh, yes. Is that the one with Katherine Heigl? There's
Um, I have
one
no.
where she's in it, and it's kind of like that. Yeah, it's great to like look on Letterbox for Wuthering Heights and 20 adaptations come up. And then by reading some of the reviews, find that there are even more that like there's a 1948 version with Charlton Heston that isn't on Letterbox that he also did a teleplay before Richard Burton. There's a Spanish language movie from the 50s that sounds really good because I mean, what's more telenovela than Wuthering Heights? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm sure that's going to be awesome. So I'm probably going to try to track that one down too
All right. So I
because
checked it out. There are two modern day ones. There's Wuthering Heights, um, which was aired on MTV. That's the one of Katherine Heigl.
ah
And it also has Francis from Malcolm in the Middle plays Edward instead of Edgar. and then Katherine Heigl plays Isabel.
Nice.
The one I was referencing to has James Caan in it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
And
probably
there's a 1954. The Spanish language one is let's see, directed by Louis Brunel from 1954. It was called Abismos de Pasión, and it sounds great. 91 minutes, set in Mexico, 19th century Mexico. So that one, yeah, because I like, God, this is going to be really great telenovela fodder.
Yeah, definitely.
Get some scandal.
Did you have any final thoughts?
Yes, we should go karaoke and challenge each other to sing Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights.
That sounds like fun. Yeah. Now when I listen to the song, I'll understand what's going on because I once listened to the song. That song is what made me think that this was a ghost story because the song
Yeah,
is so haunting.
yeah, it is. Apparently, the version that got her when she was, I think, 15, 16 years old to write that song, her biggest hit, she was watching the 1967 3-hour miniseries with Ian McShane, and the scene was really well done where the ghost hand comes out of the window and grabs the lodger, and then Ian McShane goes to the window and calls out to her, and yeah, that teenage Kate Bush was really moved by that, and she said, "Oh, I'll write a song about it." She got her to read the book and write the song. And I think it might be the biggest understatement of pop song history when she says that Heathcliff had a temper. Yeah, yeah, no duh. He had a temper, all right. And she was jealous.
All right. Thank you for coming by, Todd. Hopefully we can see you again pretty soon.
All right, yeah, let's do this. Always fun talking movies.
Yeah, it is. I'm really loving doing this podcast because I get to talk with various people about various different movies, and it's always nice to have that variety. I mean, in my episode after this is going to be a 70s Shaw Brothers martial arts movie.
Woohoo!
Yeah, and that is it for the Balance of Cinema podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, dislike. I get engagement from dislikes, so dislike it if you want. Please don't dislike. My ego won't be able to handle it.
Don't hurt our feelings.
Be sure to comment your favorites Wuthering Heights adaptation.
Yeah.
And if this comes out after the movie comes out, let us know what you thought of the movie. I am Steven with the Balance of Cinema podcast, and once again, this is my co-host for the episode, Todd.
Hey, this has been great.